This is truly a scary situation. Shout out to Pat McAfee for posting this, but let's go ahead and talk about this. So Darren Waller recently retired, and there's been a lot of talks and speculations. Obviously got divorced, put out a diss track, not a diss track, but he put out a rap song about his divorce, and I kind of think like most of the media or most NFL fans kind of looked at it and said, this is stupid, whatever, who cares, right? Instead now, it actually looks a lot worse than I initially thought it was, okay? So, if you don't know who Darren Waller is, he was ranked one of the best tight ends in the league a couple years ago. He started off in Baltimore, where he was a wide receiver. He had a really bad drug problem. He ended up getting suspended for a year, and the Ravens ended up cutting him. Then Jay Gruden picks him up. John Gruden, sorry, not Jay Gruden. John Gruden picks him up and brings him to the Oakland Raiders. Then he played for the Raiders for a couple seasons. He was going to get married. Josh McDaniels at the time for the Raiders went ahead and leaked the marriage out because he didn't like him. Then he ends up going to the Giants, plays there for a couple seasons, and now he's retiring. And the situation again is really just crazy. And it gets crazier when he explains the situation of what happened and why he is retiring. So I got a couple part of the screen here. It's out to the Pat McAfee show. But let's go ahead and listen up to this.
Couldn't breathe, so I ended up calling 911. I said couldn't breathe. Just like I said, couldn't breathe, so I ended up calling 911, and I think I'm talking clearly on the phone, but they can't make me out or make out much of what I'm saying, so I realized I kind of had to like go with the nodding and like breathe deep, and then they finally like got my address, and I get up and put a shoe like in the front door to prop the door open, so like when they arrive, they can just kick the door open and come check on me. And I just go sit on the, I kind of stumble to the couch, call the lights on, and I'm there just kind of like breathing deeply, trying to hold on to my breath. And in between each breath, I'm yelling out like help. So like the neighbors I could maybe wake the neighbors up, and maybe they'd be like, what is that? And they'd come through or whatever. But that fight kind of ensued. I don't know how long the time was. It felt like forever. And I'm like, damn, like I hang on this couch and nobody knows. It was a very, like, humbly, very scary event, And I remember what felt like, which was it was kind of similar to my overdose, just like the power, like, plug just being pulled out, and I just couldn't breathe anymore. But then it was like immediately somebody was there. There was like a paramedic and a police officer. That paramedic put an oxygen mask on my face, and a police officer was there. And then I was able to I was still very much out of it, but could kind of have a conversation with him. And, the police officer calls my mom, which my poor mother has had enough trauma with me with police and legal stuff. And the police officer calls her and she's like, oh Lord, not again. But just call my mom trying to talk.
And at first, when I first heard a part of this, I thought that this was another OD. And, which scared the crap out of me, because obviously I know there's a lot of people who lose their life every year because of ODing. Obviously, as Darren talks about, he OD'd at one point. But once I started hearing more about this, what it sounds like is an anxiety attack. An anxiety attack / panic attack. And I've had many times in my life, I deal with bad anxiety. I'm actually on medication for it. That's how bad my anxiety can get. And I used to have panic attacks really bad as well. And a lot of that it comes down to, as he said, exactly what he said is like almost identical to how it feels, is that you kind of feel like your chest is closing up. You feel like you can't speak, you can't move, you can't do anything. And then the problem is, as that's happening, you overthink it. So you might, in theory, be just having an anxiety attack, but then you overthink and you think that you're dying and you think that something's happening. You think this, is that, and third. And every little noise can get to you and can make you overthink even worse, which it makes the anxiety attack worse. It makes the whole situation 100 times worse. So it just continues down this rabbit hole until eventually, usually in my case, I used to just pass out after having a really bad anxiety attack or panic attack. And there really isn't any way to stop it other than, again, paramedics or someone helping you out there. With me, I usually just, somehow I would get control of myself and I would just breathe really deeply. And again, like I said, eventually I'd probably just end up passing out. So it's, medication helps out a lot to, resolve those issues and problems. But yeah, no, it's a very scary sight. So once when I heard this, I was like, okay, so this is probably an OD. And then once I heard more, yeah, no, this is definitely anxiety and panic attack, and it's a scary medical issue. And again, my hat's off to him, knowing how, it feels to go through that type of situation. I do feel very, very bad for him. And again, the whole other case of retirement with the whole rap song and the divorce and whatever, right? This is beside all that. This right here is a situation where he could have lost his life. So thank the Lord that he is okay and, that he is going to get better and continue to get better. But no, this is a very scary situation. And it makes sense why he retired. I mean, after a situation like that, you want to walk away from everything, right? You want to walk away from all the things that you're dealing with in your life and all the problems and issues. And again, I'm not sure what's causing his anxiety or his, panic attack here, but it could be football. And if it is football, then, you need to walk away and kind of distance yourself from the situation and kind of get a grip on your own life, right? Because at the end of the day, we always say this, but football, it's only right now, okay? Football, you're only in football for a certain amount of time. But at the end of the day, football is not your life. You might play football for 10 years. You're probably going to be alive for as long as, 80, 90 years, okay? Hopefully longer than that, depending, right? And again, I'm saying like your whole entire life, not just like from his age right now. I believe he's 30. So he could probably live another 60 years. He might play football for another 3 or 4 years, okay? If he did want to play. There's a life outside of football. That's why you have Andrew Luck, who retired early, and other players who retired early, because they're like, hey, listen, it's not worth it. It's not worth going out there and risking hurting yourself and not being able to live the next 60 years of your life just because of a football game, right? And some of these players, they have made generational wealth, absolutely generational wealth. And as long as they don't blow all that money out and, they're kind of smart, in some way smart, I mean, depending on how much money you made, but when you go to Darren Waller's case, he is a tight end, which isn't going to be the most money out of any position, but it's enough that as long as he budgets correctly, and I say correctly as in like budgets for a person who's making $100,000 a year, he should be able to be fine for the rest of his life. So it's a scary situation. It really is. And thank God that he's okay. And yeah, I understand why he retired. I really do. Because if you go through something like that, you're very amped to not want to go back to football. And as he says here with his OD or now his medical problem here, it does definitely, it's a tax on your loved ones and your family members. Family and friends, I will say, because they have to see you go through a situation like that. And for his mom to have to see him go through a situation with the OD, and now in the situation with this, that's a very scary sight to see your son go through both of those things. I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine, so tell me down below your thoughts, opinions. I'll see you guys in the next one.